Two men thought humiliating a struggling mom in front of her kids was funny, until a quiet mechanic changed everything. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't throw a punch. He simply refused to let silence win. What started as an ordinary grocery run turned into a powerful lesson in standing up, speaking out, and being someone's safe place, even if no one's watching. This story will stick with you, and it might just change you. Russell Gaines wasn't the type of man you'd notice in a crowd. At 43, he carried the weight of 2 decades under the hood of Chevys and Fords, his work shirt still bearing grease from that day's transmission rebuild. On that rainy Thursday evening, all he wanted was a gallon of milk, eggs, and maybe a frozen pizza. Something quick so he could be home before his niece called to review her spelling words. He didn't grab a cart, just a small red basket that squeaked when you walked too fast. The fluorescent buzz of Landry's grocery was oddly calming. Tired workers shuffled through the aisles, heads down, earbuds in, just trying to get through the day. Russell fit right in, until he heard it. "Must be nice to live off my taxes," a man's voice rang out, loud and cutting. Russell froze mid-step, a jar of spaghetti sauce halfway to the basket. Then a second voice, higher pitched and laughing. "Look at her, bet. Each kid's got a different dad." The sound punched Russell in the chest before he even saw them. Two men, late 30s, stood near the frozen food section. One wore a Bluetooth earpiece, the other had a snake tattoo wrapping around his neck. They weren't yelling, but they were loud enough that they wanted to be heard. They were performing. In front of them stood a woman, early 30s, clutching a crying toddler in one arm. A small boy, maybe 7, clinging to her hoodie. Her sweatshirt was faded, her posture rigid. In her hand, she held a snap card like it might explode if she squeezed it too hard. Russell watched her stiffen, lips pressed into a thin line. The boy looked down, jaw tight like he'd learned not to cry in public. No one else moved. A cashier glanced up and looked away. An older woman near the yogurt section seemed to suddenly become very interested in nutrition labels. Russell felt his hand tighten around the basket. Something about the boy, his silence, his shame, reminded him of himself, of being 8 years old and standing behind his own mother at a checkout lane in Shreveport, watching her fingers tremble as she paid with food stamps. He remembered how no one helped her that day either. Just whispers, just stares. Then one of the men said something Russell couldn't unhear. If she spent less time swiping EBT and more time working, maybe she wouldn't need handouts. The words weren't just cruel, they were said for sport. Russell stepped forward. He didn't know what he was going to say yet. He just knew silence wasn't an option. Not this time. "Hey," just one word. Firm, grounded, not loud, but it cut through the tension like a box cutter through cardboard. The men turned. The one with the Bluetooth earpiece raised an eyebrow. The guy with the snake tattoo tilted his head, confused. The air shifted, heavy and electric, like the moment before a summer storm hits. Russell stood tall, basket hanging from one calloused hand. His other hand was relaxed at his side, but his posture, steady, unmoving, commanded attention. "You always talk to women like that, or just the ones you think won't fight back?" For a beat, neither man said a word. Then the tattooed one scoffed. "What, you her boyfriend or something?" Russell shook his head slowly. "Nah, I'm just a man who knows the difference between a joke and a cheap shot." People were watching now. A teenage employee leaned subtly against a display of hot sauce. A mother pushing a stroller stopped halfway down the aisle. The buzz of the fluorescent lights seemed to quiet. "She didn't ask for your opinion," Russell continued, voice calm but with that unmistakable mechanic's grit. "She's here buying food for her kids. Meanwhile, you two are out here treating her struggle like some kind of open mic night." The Bluetooth guy opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "You don't know her," Russell pressed. "You don't know what kind of day she's had, what she's juggling. You just saw a woman with a snap card and decided that made you better." Snake Tattoo shifted, looking down for the first time. "We didn't mean nothing by it," he muttered, suddenly less sure of himself. Russell stepped just a little closer, not threatening, just present. "If humiliating a mom in front of her kids is your idea of fun," he said, "then maybe it's time you took a long look in the mirror." The silence was thick now. Even the toddler had stopped fussing. The woman, still clutching the snap card, hadn't moved. Her eyes were wide, her jaw slightly open. She looked like she couldn't quite believe what was happening. Her son, still holding onto her hoodie, peeked up at Russell with cautious awe. That's when the store manager appeared, khakis and all. "What's going on over here?" the man asked, voice clipped, eyes darting. Bluetooth guy straightened up quickly. "Nothing, just talking." Russell didn't look away from him. "You call that talking?" The manager gave a tight-lipped sigh. "Let's not make a scene, sir. People are trying to shop." Russell turned to him, eyebrows raised. "And you're trying to keep your store tidy. I get that, but you'd rather keep it quiet than keep it right?" The manager blinked. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." And just like that, the dynamic shifted again. A woman near the bread aisle muttered, "He's right." A man in a camo hat nodded. "Ain't no call for talking to a lady like that." The men, bullies moments ago, looked around and realized they were no longer the biggest voices in the room. "Let's go," Tattoo said to his friend, brushing past the end of the aisle. Bluetooth nodded, avoiding Russell's eyes. Russell didn't follow. He didn't need to. The damage was undone, the shame redirected, the silence broken. As the store resumed its normal rhythm, the woman began slowly packing her groceries again, hands shaking just slightly less than before. Her son looked up at Russell and asked quietly, "Are you my mom's bodyguard?" Russell blinked, caught off guard. Then he smiled. "No, kid," he said, "just somebody who saw something wrong and decided not to look away." Russell stood where the men had been just moments before. The aisle had returned to its rhythm, scanners beeping, carts rolling, but something in the air still hummed like it hadn't fully settled. He turned his attention to the woman. "You okay?" he asked gently. She looked up at him, really looked at him this time. Her eyes weren't watery, but there was a tiredness behind them that went bone deep. Not just from tonight, but from years of carrying more than she could say. "Yeah," she answered after a beat. "Thank you." The little boy beside her, maybe 7 or 8, was still watching Russell like he'd stepped out of a Marvel movie. "You helped my mom," he said softly, as if still testing if it had really happened. Russell gave him a small nod. "You helped her too. Sticking by her like that, staying strong. That counts." The boy blinked, and for the first time since the whole thing began, his lips curled into something like a smile. Russell turned back to the mother. "What's your name?" "Tiana," she said, reaching out and shaking his hand. Her grip was firmer than he expected. "Tiana Wells." "Russell Grant," he replied, wiping his palm discreetly on his grease-stained shirt before shaking hers. "Nice to meet you, Tiana." She chuckled, just barely. "Not exactly how I imagined introductions going tonight." "Yeah, well," he smiled, "beats Tinder." That drew a real laugh. Not big, not loud, but real. They stood there for a moment, the sounds of the store washing past them like background noise. Tiana looked down at her toddler, still asleep in the cart, head resting on a packet of toilet paper like it was a pillow. Her son leaned into her leg, clutching his snack like a security blanket. "You didn't have to say anything," she said finally. "Most people don't." Russell nodded slowly. "I know. I've been one of those people before." That made her look at him again, closer, with curiosity now. "I remember standing in a grocery store like this when I was a kid," he said. "Watching my mom try to pay with food stamps. People didn't say anything back then either, but they stared. That was enough." Tiana swallowed hard. "You know, you get used to the silence, even start thinking you deserve it. That's the worst part." Russell nodded. "Nah, nobody deserves that. They stood there quietly for another beat before Russell glanced toward the front of the store. "You good to get out of here?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah, just needed a few things, but it turned into more than I bargained for." Russell looked at her son, who was staring up at him like he was still waiting to see if he'd grow a cape. "You sure I'm not your mom's bodyguard?" Russell asked, crouching slightly to meet the boy's eyes again. The boy smiled. "You kind of are." Tiana shook her head, amused. "We'll let you off the hook tonight, but you did good." Russell straightened up and felt the weight in his chest shift. Not disappear, but shift. He hadn't expected anything more than a quiet grocery run and maybe a cold drink to end the night. But here he was, standing between an exhausted mom and the kind of memory her son would carry for years. And maybe that was enough. As they headed toward the front, Tiana turned back one last time. "You ever think about being someone's safe place?" Russell paused. "Trying to be," he said. They were almost at the exit when Russell saw them again. The two men. Both of them had re-entered the store, walking a little faster now, eyes trained straight ahead. No snickers, no sideways glances, just quiet, focused steps toward the beer aisle. Russell's spine went taut for a moment, but he didn't move. He just watched. So did Tiana. She shifted her toddler in her arms, hugging the little girl close, and instinctively placed her free hand on her son's shoulder. Her son, who was gripping a juice bottle like it might be a lightsaber, froze as well, eyes flicking toward the men. But something had changed. The men didn't look their way. Not once. They passed by quickly, heads slightly down, and disappeared into the back of the store like shadows that had lost their shape. Russell exhaled slowly. "They won't try anything. Not tonight." Tiana nodded, but her voice was tight. "Still, I hate that I flinched. I hate that my son noticed." Just then, the teenage cashier, short hair, light freckles, still wearing a lanyard with a half-faded Employee of the Month badge, pushed a cart of returned items past them. She slowed as she reached Russell. "I saw what you did earlier," she said quietly, not quite meeting his eyes. "I wish I'd said something too." Russell looked at her with soft eyes. "Next time you will." She gave a nervous half-smile and nodded, pushing the cart forward with a little more confidence. It was small, but it meant something. Tiana glanced at Russell. She needed to hear that. Russell shrugged. "We all do sometimes." They stepped outside, the automatic doors hissing behind them. The sky was darker now, Baton Rouge humidity thick in the air, but the tension had thinned. Tiana led her son toward a bench just beside the vending machines and set the toddler down gently beside him. She began digging in her purse. "Promised him a snack if he behaved," she explained. "I was just seeing if I had quarters." Russell pulled a few crumpled ones from his pocket. "Let me get it?" Tiana hesitated. "I didn't ask for." "I know," Russell said, cutting her off with a kind tone. "You didn't. I'm offering." Her face tensed for just a second, pride's reflex, but then it softened. She nodded, accepting. Her son picked out a juice and a pack of cookies, watching the vending machine with wide eyes as it whirred and clunked like a robot handing over treasure. "What's your name?" she asked after a beat. "Russell." She extended her hand again, this time with a little more ease. "Tiana. Tiana Wells." They shook. It felt more like recognition than introduction. "You didn't have to say anything back there," she said again, this time with deeper weight. Russell nodded. "I didn't want your boy thinking that silence is normal." Tiana's eyes flicked toward her son, who was now happily munching a cookie beside his sister. "I hope he remembers your face." Russell didn't answer right away, but something in his chest shifted again, warmer this time. Purposeful? Just then, from the far end of the lot, Russell noticed the same group of teenagers he'd seen earlier, goofing around, laughing, shoving each other lightly as they made their way toward the bus stop. One of them, a tall kid in a hoodie, caught Russell's eye and gave him a subtle nod. Not a thanks, not a fanboy grin. Just a simple flick of the chin. Acknowledgement. Russell nodded back. Tiana watched the exchange. "You're someone people notice. The good kind." Russell chuckled. "That's a new one." The door slid open behind them again, another shopper passing through, but neither of them moved. For the first time in a long time, Russell didn't feel like disappearing. Russell sat in his truck, engine off, watching the glow of the grocery store flicker in the rearview mirror. The warmth of Baton Rouge's night air drifted in through the half-cracked window. He hadn't planned on staying this long. He wasn't thinking about milk or eggs anymore. He wasn't even hungry. The boy's voice still echoed in his chest. "Are you my mom's bodyguard?" Russell stared down at his calloused hands, palms open like they held the question. His fingers curled slowly into fists and released again. He hadn't expected that question to stick, but it did. And then Tiana's words played back too. "So you're the safe place for somebody." He hadn't thought of himself that way. He was just the uncle who picked Lainey up from school, packed her lunch, and helped with math homework she always claimed she didn't need help with. But maybe that was it. Maybe being someone's safe place didn't come with flashing lights or dramatic gestures. Maybe it looked like showing up, saying something when silence felt easier, stepping into a moment no one else wanted to touch. The memory snuck up on him, uninvited but welcome now. He was 10 again, standing in a hot corner store just outside Port Allen. His shoes were too small. His mother's EBT card had glitched. The cashier had barked, "Lady can't pay. Next!" And the people behind them had sighed like she was stealing time, not groceries. Then, a man stepped forward, quiet, worn-out gray work shirt, boots coated in dust, no sermon, no lecture, just slid a 20 across the counter and said, "It's all right." That man had no idea what he did that day, how his simple act stuck in a boy's mind for over 3 decades, how it became a kind of blueprint. Russell reached into the glove box and pulled out the small spiral notebook where he kept grocery lists and bills. He flipped past scribbles of errands and reminders until he found a blank page. He wrote 3 words: speak, stand, stay. He didn't know why, but it felt right, like a code, like a vow, like something he wanted Lainey to find one day and understand, not just read. A group of teenagers passed the truck, Slurpees in hand, laughing about something stupid and sweet. One of them looked up, gave Russell that same chin nod again. He returned it, then turned the key in the ignition. The radio kicked on low, Otis Redding crooning something soft and sorrowful. Russell let it play as he pulled out, his headlights slicing through the dusk. He passed a bus stop, mother and daughter sitting close under the orange streetlight. The little girl leaning into her mom like she belonged nowhere else. So many mothers out here just trying to make it, holding it together with frayed threads, carrying kids and groceries and judgment like it's part of the load. And too often nobody sees them. Not really. But tonight someone did. Back home the porch light buzzed like it always did. The door creaked. The house smelled like old wood and lemon cleaner. Lainey was curled up on the couch, her schoolbook balanced on her knees, pencil in her mouth. She looked up when he came in. "You were gone forever," she said, only half joking. Russell dropped his keys in the dish by the door. "Yeah, ran into something unexpected." "Like what?" He paused. "How do you explain what happened to a 12-year-old? How do you make it honest without making the world seem crueler than it already is?" "I saw someone getting treated badly," he said slowly. "So I said something." Lainey blinked. "Did you fight them?" He smiled, soft and tired. "Didn't need to." "Did they stop?" "They did." Lainey seemed satisfied and returned to her book. Russell stayed standing. His eyes fell on her lunchbox, sitting on the counter. He opened it absently, checking for the usual forgotten apple cores and sticky snack wrappers. Instead, he found the note he'd tucked in that morning. "You got this. I'm proud of you." 4 words, still there. And somehow, that hit harder than anything else that day. He sat beside her, looked over her shoulder at the math problem she was chewing her pencil over. "You want help?" She handed him the pencil without saying anything. They worked side by side, her shoulder brushing his as she leaned in. Russell glanced at her. This small, brilliant, stubborn girl who didn't yet understand how often the world would try to dim her light, and how important it was to speak up when others were being dimmed too. He hoped she'd remember this version of him, the one who stood up, who didn't walk away, who didn't let silence win. After the last problem, Lainey looked up and grinned. "You're like one of the good guys, huh?" Russell chuckled. "A real one this time." "Trying to be." She nodded, satisfied. "Good." They didn't say much after that. The TV hummed quietly in the background. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once and then went quiet. And inside, under the soft hum of a living room lamp, a man sat with a child, both of them holding pencils, problems, and just enough hope to solve them. Russell didn't need to be anyone's bodyguard, just someone who gave a damn. And tonight, that was more than enough. What is the lesson of this story? One, sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is speak up when others stay silent. 2, kids are always watching. What we tolerate teaches them what's acceptable. 3, you don't have to be perfect, powerful, or polished to do the right thing. 4, being someone's safe place isn't about big gestures. It's about presence, compassion, and courage. 5, the smallest actions can create lasting impact. Quiet strength matters. What do you think about this story? Let's comment below to discuss. And don't forget to subscribe our channel to listen to more interesting stories.